this very moment, something has indeed happened in Belarus. Lukashenko is bringing out nuclear weapons, and not just that. This new superweapon shocked the world, but an unexpected detail has come to light. Putin's hellish show has begun, but things are not as they seem. The world is in panic. This is the beginning of a new threat. The whole truth is in the story.
On the final day of the Zapad 2025 exercises, the Russians and Belarusians decided to amaze the world with their wonder weapon called saffron. Propaganda media outlets spread the news online, claiming that at the Borisovsky training ground, north of Minsk, they tested a mobile combat laser system capable of destroying small UAVs at a distance of 1 kilometer. All that is known about it are the parameters announced by the presenter, a target engagement time of less than 10 seconds and a crew of 3 people. Back in the summer of 2024, Russians reported that Russia and Belarus had prepared a new combat laser for testing. The Belarusians even produced a report from the LEMT Scientific and Technical Center, which has been developing laser technology since 2023. The designers called their creation the Hyperboloid and showed the first assembled prototype.
The system, developed at the Belarusian enterprise, can operate in conjunction with various radar systems. The Belarusian system is installed in special containers. The laser is deployed on a platform directly at the moment of use and operates in a pulsed mode. This means that the energy flash can only be detected during the active engagement of a target. In addition, the entire complex can be installed not only in special facilities or underground, for camouflage purposes, but also deployed on mobile platforms.
In May of this year, a Belarusian public page that publishes information on military-related topics posted these 2 photos. In one photo, there's a falling drone, in the other, the so-called combat laser saffron. From this, analysts concluded that the system had been tested, and now they've announced it at large-scale exercises that the so-called Union states are conducting near the borders of NATO countries. Ukrainian analysts have already criticized this show, saying that the Russians were flaunting a prototype in front of observers and participants from other countries. Moreover, as with other so-called unparalleled projects, this weapon is most likely a repackaged Chinese solution known as Silent Hunter. What's most interesting is that earlier the Russians did the same thing based on it, only under the name Nomad.
Along with that very same, what's interesting is that the Russians themselves admit it. The laser complex shown in the photo is a Chinese development called the Low Altitude Laser Defending System, or LS. The name Silent Hunter also appears online. This is an improved version of the LS system with a power output of up to 30 kilowatts, available in both stationary and mobile variants, and most likely developed by the China Academy of Engineering Physics.
Recently, the Kvadrat was spotted at Zapad 2025. This is a Russian terminal that is positioned in Moscow as an analog to Starlink. This equipment was used to provide communications for units and elements of the regional troop grouping. There is no information about it in open sources, but visually it resembles the American system. It is known that Kvadrat is designed to transmit large amounts of data at the regimental or divisional level with the capability to use different communication systems, with secure email and video conferencing. In addition to Kvadrat, terminals called Sprint were also used during the exercises. Information about them only surfaced recently, at the end of June, when Russian media reported on deliveries to the 20th Combined Arms Army of the Western Grouping. And of course, aside from the new equipment, the Russians and Belarusians saved maneuvers involving the notorious Oreshnik for the finale of the exercises.
Among the most significant events were activities such as planning and reviewing the use of non-strategic nuclear weapons, as well as the assessment and deployment of the Oreshnik mobile missile complex. Our Russian colleagues have shared their combat experience with us, which allows us to say that our units are now receiving the most up-to-date, most advanced information, which they are integrating into their combat operations both mechanically and automatically.
The Zapad 2025 exercises turned out to be larger in scale than analysts had expected. The armies of Belarus and Russia carried out several maneuvers at once and showcased their own developments. After several years of being an information outcast, Minsk hosted dozens of foreign journalists and delegates. The dictator's armies enjoyed rattling their sabers so much that they promised to do it again in 2 years.
Urgent. A bomb explosion. The Kremlin has Orban on the hook. Putin has deadly compromat on the Hungarian Prime Minister. This secret has driven him to panic, and Hungary was also put firmly in its place. This is a victory for Ukraine. Orban did not expect such a blow. The EU has taken a historic step. Watch for all the latest events you might have missed.
It seems there is something more between Orban and Putin. Some kind of compromat on the Hungarian Prime Minister.
Nevertheless, it is satisfying that we still maintain and develop relations with many European countries. One of these countries is Hungary.
As a result, quarreling with Brussels has long become Viktor Orbán's political style.
We had to dance to Moscow's tune. Brussels plays its own tune too, but we dance as we wish, and if we don't want to, we don't dance at all.
And blocking Ukraine's progress is Hungary's main goal in the European Union. Budapest says no to almost everything, from frozen Russian assets to other forms of assistance. And of course against Ukraine in the EU.
We stopped Ukraine's accession to the European Union. We did this despite strong resistance. We would have instantly found ourselves at war with the Russians. That's why Ukraine's membership in the EU cannot be allowed, because it would bring war to Europe and Hungary.
As a result of the fact that a single vote from Hungary can block everything during voting, EU countries have proposed changing the decision-making process, specifically moving from unanimity to majority voting.
There needs to be a shift from the absolute method of decision-making to majority rule. And I think that at this point, the European Union is moving in that direction. We understand that the bureaucratic machine within the EU does not work as quickly as we would like, but such fundamental reforms often require time, and in addition, political will is needed. It seems there are no issues with the latter, but as always, there isn't enough time.
At one point, the EU even made a decision without Hungary's consent. This was about the frozen Russian assets. Hungary abstained from voting, and Brussels decided to use the money without its approval.
In the context of Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine, we have repeatedly seen various tools that the European Union used to bypass Hungary's right of veto. This included political pressure and economic threats.
Nevertheless, a group of members of the European Parliament even called on Brussels to freeze funding for Hungary due to Orban's failure to comply with EU laws and values.
Of course, the European Union's funding instrument in favor of the Hungarian budget is quite a strong argument for changing Orban's position. The Hungarian budget and the implementation of government programs largely depend on the subsidies that Budapest receives from Brussels. That is why this mechanism has been used repeatedly, and I think it will continue to be used in the future until political reform is implemented. And important decisions can be made without significant pressure or taking into account the opinion of Orban himself.
But imagine, up until around 2009, Orban was a staunchly anti-Russian politician. But after that, something suddenly changed in his position, and he began to play by the Kremlin's rules.
We need to understand that you can't make deals with the Russians, unless it's some kind of encrypted 10-year agreement, from which it won't be clear who they are or what specific economic calculations it's based on. And how will this even affect Hungary's development?
And the reason for all this is supposedly some compromising material Putin has on Orban, which, as reported, changed his rhetoric. Back in 1990, the Hungarian Prime Minister allegedly received a suitcase full of money from a Russian crime boss, and the handover itself was recorded by a hidden camera. But the issue here might not even be just about that.
Orban himself is personally and deeply dependent on Russian money, and his current political position is nothing more than a pure and undeniable manifestation of political corruption in favor of a hostile foreign state.
For Orban himself, personal enrichment is no less important. Through business and connections with Russian oligarchs, he has become the richest person in Hungary, as evidenced by his mansion worth 45 million euros. Since Orban does not serve the interests of the Hungarian people, nor does he take into account the interests of Europe and Ukraine, it is reported that he may lose power as early as 2026.
We are awaiting the next parliamentary elections in Hungary with cautious optimism, because there is a strong possibility that Orban will actually lose them. And a party will come to power that is more Eurocentric and at the same time clearly supportive of Ukraine.
For now, however, Orban remains the gateway through which Putin can influence the European decision-making process. And this, of course, poses a threat both to the peoples of Europe and to Ukraine.
Shock. Explosive news. The US has raised the stakes in the war. For the first time, Washington has approved the delivery of mega weapons to Ukraine. Sensational. NATO is pooling resources to destroy Putin's army. This has never happened before. We'll tell you all the details right now.
The US has approved the first arms deliveries to Ukraine funded by NATO, although just 2 months ago this was only being discussed.
We won't pay anything for this. For us, it will be business. And we will send them Patriot systems, which they desperately need because Putin has really surprised a lot of people.
According to Reuters, Deputy Head of the Pentagon Elbridge Colby has approved 2 arms shipments to Ukraine, each worth $500 million.
It is quite obvious that in the first 2 packages approved by Elbridge Colby at the Pentagon, the main focus will still be on air defense systems. Judging by the amount, it's abundantly clear that we're not talking about the venerable Patriot missile systems, but rather, quite obviously, about the highly sought-after PAC-3 missiles, which are perpetually in critically short supply and are specifically utilized directly to effectively shoot down incoming Russian ballistic missiles. Additionally, advanced AM-9 missiles may also be supplied to further bolster defensive capabilities.
Nevertheless, Pearl has become a new format for transferring weapons to Ukraine. Allies provide the money and the weapons come from stockpiles, from America.
Recently, the highly respected Financial Times, a leading global business publication, reported on significant and pressing problems concerning the critical supply of vitally important ammunition and advanced missiles specifically designed for the essential air defense systems currently deployed in Ukraine. This concerning situation was primarily explained by a comprehensive and thorough audit of the United States Pentagon's existing military stockpiles, revealing unexpected shortages and logistical challenges. But now it's abundantly clear that a brand new program with sophisticated new algorithms have already been successfully put into place, and this significant development will now certainly help us to receive the absolutely necessary weapons.
NATO allies plan to provide Ukraine with up to $10 billion worth of weapons. But so far, we only have 2 packages totaling $1 billion.
$1 billion is not a truly fantastic amount of money. It's what actually renews. And it's what truly sustains and supports for the long term. It's the necessary critical supplies for us right now, according to a truly new algorithm under a new program.
But what about the timeline? The American side has not yet officially announced the deliveries, so we cannot know the timeline.
We do not have official confirmation from the Pentagon as we did, for example, with the IRAM missiles, where it was clearly stated who would pay, how they would be procured, and what they would be. There has not yet been such an announcement regarding the next steps.
And although Trump shifted the funding for armaments to Europe, the new aid mechanisms demonstrate positive relations between Kyiv and Washington.
Of course, the delivery timelines for what is needed by the defense forces are insufficient, but nevertheless, this is a working mechanism that shows we currently have a completely healthy development in our relationship with Washington. Yes, it's not without problems. Yes, there are different views on certain aspects of the negotiation track, but nevertheless, when it comes to critical supplies for air defense systems, Washington is providing the necessary minimum that is expected of it.
And finally, how might Moscow respond to this? Washington's approval is both a signal to its allies and a challenge to the Kremlin.
In this case, we understand that the main focus of aggression from the Kremlin is directed at European partners, while attempts are being made to whitewash Trump. The only one who might participate in such an attack, specifically against the 47th President of the United States, is Dmitry Medvedev, who could write a caustic post about it. So there will be some kind of reaction, but it will be very softened so as not to damage the relationship between Putin and Trump.
Meanwhile, the Financial Times also reports that the US will send 33,000 AI-powered drones to Ukraine by the end of the year.
That's all for now. And for more breaking news from the front, tune in to our next episode. Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.